We're going to talk about how to underwrite your own private lending agreement. By the way, if it's a 2-pager, 4-pager, it could be complicated. It could be as simple as just a few pages. However, remember, you have to protect yourself. At the same time, it is a way for you to scale your business, and I consider it as a way to scale your wealth. A lot of the time, students coming in saying, I want to be the bank, and I always want to be the bank. I always want to be the bank. So for existing students, I know Kevin has been the bank for a while, and Francis, they're both our student freedom fighters in the community, by the way. And I gotta say, a lot of it contributes to understanding how private lending works. However, I'll go through quite a few different strategies in different webinars. Even if you're being the bank, you should know how to underwrite and understand how different strategies work. So let's get started. First thing first, like I mentioned, we do our due diligence and we protect ourselves. And also, we also want to make sure it's a win-win for everybody, every party involved. So even though we're not here as financial planners, accountants, etc., I'm here to share my experience as an investor. And as an investor, how do we leverage different power team members? Again, a lot of it is business decision. So sometimes you'll hear us saying, hey, it's a business decision. This is how we would do it under different circumstances. As much as I want to cover everything, every single situation, every different terms, I'm not able to within the time we have in the webinar. However, the foundations are the same. So regardless of what classes you're taking or different strategies we go through in our webinar, the foundations are the same. That will still lead you to the strategies you're going to focus on. By the way, show of hands, you have a strategy coach within the community. So if you don't have one yet, make sure you go to our website and reach out to one of the strategy coaches. I mentioned we're not financial planners, accountants, tax advisors. However, if you realize all these people are people on our power team, some of us, I know some of the people within the community are maybe one of the power team members. You might be an accountant. That might be your 9 to 5. That might be something you do. However, you will need different team members on your team. So financial planners, accountants, tax advisors, lawyers. Can somebody else give me some other power team members you will need on your team? So Caesar, can you give me another example of who you should have on your power team?
A realtor, accountant.
Property manager, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And especially for this strategy, you should have good mortgage brokers on your team as well. They could be one of the resources you have to help you find a deal, structure a deal, or how to put things together. So a lot of the things we're going to go through today is part of the creative financing course. However, creative financing covers a lot of different vehicles and tools. Private lending in general means that anything not related to the institutional vehicles. So institution vehicles, or it's something that people are usually more familiar with if you have perhaps apply for a mortgage or even go to the bank to apply for a credit card. So when we talk about institutional vehicles, you might think that for real estate, it's just real estate. So we also talk about you can use credit card, you can use cash, line of credit, etc., etc. However, under the private lending umbrella, there's also what people refer to as, say, for example, RSP or creative way of structuring your deal. Even joint venture is a form of private resources. However, for the purpose of the discussion and for our curriculum, it basically just means that private money from you or from other investors, we just perhaps put a lien on it using a contract to make sure you're protected. Once you understand how it works, I mean, Francis is also here. I see you locked in. We'll also understand that this is really a passive way. When we talk about passive income, you have to do your due diligence. And even if you have the resources right now to be the bank, I still highly encourage you to understand how different strategies work. Particularly for your first few deals, make sure you reach out to your mentor. So if you're not the smartest person, that's basically what the circle means. I know Google Translate these days can translate for you once you take a picture. You can take a picture of this screen. The circle I put there, the quote, I think best describes how power team members work. For example, if you're not the smartest person, find a smart person to plan for you. If you are not the strongest person, leverage somebody else's strength. If you're not brave, leverage somebody else's courage. If you find somebody who is always scared or really careful, these are the people who usually do the best due diligence. So if you have gone through a workshop, you have done your personality test. So if you're the beaver type, meaning you're analytical, sometimes analysis paralysis is what stops you from going forward. However, people like that are usually very good at checking your blind spot. Make sure you plan things and analyze things well. So if you have somebody like that on your power team, make sure they're your planners on the team. However, if you're none of the above, you're not smart, you're not strong, you're not well at planning, make sure you know how to be a leader and how to put everybody's talent together. And trust everybody's talent and also your talent at the same time. And even though I didn't mention it, your mentor were also part of your power team. By the way, you probably have noticed that the video is recorded. However, when you logged in, you hear that, hey, it is recorded. We might be using it for marketing purposes. Regardless, it's only for the community or to encourage other people to share the wealth with us. I mentioned your power team member includes your mentor, and I think this video concludes what mentor means.
Beat me, hate me, you can never break me. Will me, thrill me, you can never kill me. Chew me, sue me, everybody do me. Kick me, cut me, don't jump like a right me. All I wanna say is that they don't really care about us. All I wanna say is that they don't really care about us.
And by the way, I noticed I put investor's hat on because you have to think like the bank for this particular strategy. And you're a business now. A lot of the things or how much risk you want to take is up to you. So you will hear us saying business decision, business decision. At the same time, when you're starting, we always want to protect you, want to make sure you're set up correctly. So some housekeeping items. Focus. Actually, I really appreciate people turning the cameras on. Today we have a very good class. I see more people are turning your cameras on. Really appreciate that. And also David, I recognize that. Scott, Chris, and is that Savon? There. Did I pronounce your name right? Yes, perfect. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And I can see your response. And also if you have a question, raise your hand. This is supposed to be for new investors. Even if you just have 0 to 4 properties, for example, that means you still probably have a chance to improve your portfolio. Regardless, I also want to mention that we're not property collectors. So I trust your talent. We won't ask you how many properties you have. However, we will ask you if you have properties right now, are they bringing you cash flow? Are they helping you to generate wealth, accumulate wealth? So just by being here, you start to have acquisition of knowledge. And I love being in an environment like this myself. Sometimes I'm learning as well. And by teaching you, I'm also learning. I think it's really when you apply the knowledge that you'll feel the fulfillment of it. One of the things I heard lately, whether you agree or not, fulfillment is the true measure of success. Because really, even if you have money, I know this is about financial education. What does it bring to you? What does it mean to you? So thank you for focusing. I see David bringing on his kid as well. And it is on me if you have grade 8 math, grade 9 math education, and you don't understand the numbers. Really, it's supposed to be really simple. The hardest math in this particular class or seminar is just calculating the ROI, return on investment. So within the 90 minutes to probably 110 minutes you have with me, I hope that you're going to make the best return of your time. So that's another form of investment as well. So thank you for focusing. This is a very good class, seminar. Participants are all turning the cameras on because really, so David, even if your kids are in school, really when you're only reading the book, even though parents, we really encourage our kids to read, you learned 10% of it. It's really when you're hearing it. And by the way, at school, you're going to write a report, etc., or perhaps put in your thoughts. That's really when you start to think about it and reflect on it. So when you see it, hear it, or even when you watch a movie, that's perhaps only 50%. By the way, if you can repeat it, sometimes I encourage participants to repeat it to people you know. And even for the workshop, you can bring one other participant for free. Because when you repeat it and say it, you benefit somebody else if this is something you think will benefit them as well. And it's when they do it, say it, and actually take action is when you have 90% of the learning. So even though for some of us in the room, you might not have even 1 or 2 deals yet, the point is if you can go through the simulation, a lot of the times when we go through the examples, it is pretty similar to an actual deal. I sometimes simplify the numbers. And when you get into the advanced class, we'll take you step by step. However, right here, we will give you the basic understanding of how it works. So even when we talk about going to your lawyer, and I do want you to be an educated investor, trained investor, when you go to your lawyers, for example, to go through the contracts for you. So analyze the deals first, and then perhaps they can help you change some of the terms. However, I think it's when you find the deal, we'll go through the process as well. When you find the deal and then you analyze it, thinking that, hey, it is worth taking it to the next step, then go to your power team members. So same thing, when you reach your mentor, reach out to your mentors with a deal. Don't just throw the links in the email and say, hey, analyze it for me. Tell me to buy it or not. Tell me to get into the deal or not. No, because really we're here to teach you how to fish. We're not here to give you the fish. As simple as that. Sometimes I'm thinking that is so easy if I just tell you exactly what to do. And especially David, your kid is here. Sometimes I'm thinking, even though I will ask you what your goals are, everybody, even if your goals is to build a portfolio or a legacy for the next generation, you'll see that a lot of the private lending deals are 1 year and joint ventures, sometimes 5 years, depending on the terms. After 1 year, after 5 years, if you pass it down, or if it's in your estate, if they don't know what to do with it, it's not gonna be sustainable. So actually, one of the goals I have is to help the next generation and help them learn how investing works. Because what they're learning in school is not any easier. However, is it really bringing them to financial freedom? Most of the time, I can confidently say probably not. So thank you for focusing. I love this kid. At this age, he's so focused. So I absolutely love it. And by looking at the learning chart, you probably realize that it's only taking you to 90% of the learning. So make sure you're having fun here. It's when you're having fun, you'll remember how it makes you feel. By the way, do you remember how your favorite teacher, for example, in grade 2, make you feel in class? Perhaps you have a lot of fun. So same thing, you might not remember everything I said today. When you're having fun, you'll remember how it feels. That's why that 10% is so important. And because we mentioned the community, by the way, once you're part of the community and registered alumni or student, like Malaz, like Kevin here, you could be here as our student ambassador, helping out one of us. And I really appreciate that, because when COVID started and we started to learn how to use Zoom, we have to take attendance and then the slide is gone because our mouses move, etc., etc. Sounds like something tedious. However, it's so important to help us make things run smoothly. So we focus so much on the community, and thank you, Malaz and other students wanting to pay it forward as well. In May, at the end of May, we're going to have a live workshop in Toronto. So if you have already attended it, make sure you invite other people to join. So every time we have a live workshop, there is going to be a TYT Connect. So on the Saturday, usually on the Saturday after class, make sure you come and join us. However, the tickets usually sell out pretty quickly. They're free. We just want you to be there and meet fellow investors as well. It's an amazing networking opportunity. And sometimes we close down the restaurants. We do that a lot. So if you want to join the workshop, and usually it's within walking distance from the live workshop. So take a picture of the calendar. It's also available on our website. And if you haven't registered for the live workshop, Melaz, you can put the link in the chat. So if you want to pass it down to somebody else, invite other people over, make sure you copy the links. So today we're going to talk about underwriting your own private lending agreement. It's not going to be as extensive as I want it to be because there's a lot of terms you would want to consider. However, with a lot of the times it's a simple guideline, then you expand from there. Even when you're just negotiating or talking to your potential business partner, you start from the basics. So complexity is usually when people are thinking it's too complex, I'm not able to go forward. So it doesn't have to be complicated. However, it has to start somewhere and it has to start the right way. So that's our goal. Number 2, how to choose the right investing strategies as a new investor. Even if you have a couple of investment properties already, perhaps you can take a look and decide, hey, is it time for me to pivot? Sometimes remember when we're talking about learning, I don't know if you hear that a lot. Learn it as a baby, learn it as it's something new. So open up to new opportunities and new ways of learning. So perhaps even though you're already investing, review your portfolio like a new investor. Maybe something new will come up. So invite new people to come to the webinar and also rethink your own strategy. So even though when we go through the strategies in the beginning of the year, we usually do plannings together. However, I encourage you to do it quarterly, or especially if you one day have cooperations. Perhaps you're filing taxes at different time of the year. So every time you do that, review your portfolio. And also the next one is how to profit from property flipping in any market. So Andrew, one of our strategy coaches, will present because he's a flipper himself. So he's going to share his experience with everybody. If you're in a market and you're thinking, I don't know what to do because it's not cash flowing, it doesn't make sense. Flipping is one of the strategies that could work in any market. As long as you understand how to analyze the deal, underwrite the deals, and find money. Find money. We call it money in the buy. So David here is also very experienced as well. One of the strategies he's also adopting. And if you just want to come to the Connect, take a picture of the QR code. And you can also go to our talented Facebook page to let us know, to confirm that you're coming, so you can reserve a spot. And this is what it's like with the community. Every time we have a mentorship, also in different cities, we also gather students to talk about, hey, our experiences, or just to connect as well. And I also mentioned, hey, pay it forward. Just like Malaz and Kevin and everybody else in the community. And Gloria, you're also an existing student. Francis, David, pay it forward, because really knowledge is not complete until shared. That's a quote from my favorite Oprah. Because it's just like any knowledge today or whatever is passed down throughout history. If it's not passed down, then it's really not sustainable. One of the example I think really resonates with that point is that today we might not know how to land on the moon anymore, because that technology, even with the computer technology we have today, did not pass down to the generation today. Regardless, we already put in the history that we could do it as human beings. However, the knowledge wasn't passed down. So again, knowledge is not complete until passed down. And that is why we have a very generous pay it forward program, cash referral for any success referral to the workshop. So the next one coming up again is in Toronto at the end of the month. So for anybody who is coming to the workshop, bring a friend or refer somebody to it. And the next step, by the way, after the workshop, or perhaps you're already there, skipping the workshop, or you already registered as a student in the mentorship program, our ultimate goal is to train you as a seasoned investor, educated investor. So that's when you start from the mentorship program. So every student get one-on-one mentor. If you're not in the community yet, first thing first, find a strategy coach. Book a time, because when you book it, schedule it, it's when it's real. So there's another quote that I love. I mean, start from thinking about it, Think and Grow Rich, right? And you can envision it. The next step is really to take action. I know that there are so many different strategies out there as an investor. So if you don't know where to start, they're like your school counselor. That's how I look at our strategy coaches. They will lead you along the way and perhaps paint a path for you to let you know what to do next. So let's start from you first. I want to know what is stopping you from going forward on your real estate investing journey, or perhaps it's something that you could improve. Melaz, could you pull out the poll? What is stopping you from going forward on your investing journey? A lot of the time is fear. Even for us as an existing investor, we still feel it sometimes. So you can start to put the answers in. Can everybody see the poll? Perfect. You just want some motivation, which is perfectly fine. By the way, I also encourage people to join the webinar. If you're an existing investor, you want to know how to speak the language. How do I speak to my OPM, my investor? I think this is also a good place to start. So if you're working with somebody outside the community, it's sometimes hard to speak the same language, right? As an investor. So if you come to any of our classes, you realize that, hey, we speak the same way. We follow the same system. So same thing, if you want to bring an investor on board, and I do have investors outside the community, sometimes it's hard for them to understand or for you to take the step to speak to them. So you can bring them to the webinar as well, and you can learn how to speak as an investor. By the way, the next live class as advanced student is raising funds. So raising funds is basically negotiating, communication. Okay, so I see most people have put in the answers. Can everybody see the results? Thumbs up or not? Thank you, Savon. Thank you, Francis. So number one is to take action. Perfect. To start taking action and have some knowledge. Okay. 0 for coming in for motivation. Still, I want to motivate you. At the same time, I'll keep in mind that you want to start to take action. Okay. It's not too complicated to get you started, especially with this strategy. And then you could be the bank as well. By the way, if you're on the working partner side, if you're working on a particular project right now, perhaps you can also take a look at, hey, this could be one of the vehicles I'm going to use. Perhaps you already got a mortgage from the bank, etc. Or perhaps you have difficulties getting funding. So private could be really flexible. Okay. And again, it starts from you. So I'll remember that most people here want to take action already. Perhaps that's because you have a purpose you want to fulfill. Perhaps it's a community. A lot of the people coming in to Trust Your Talent, when I speak to the students, they have perhaps a church or they want to help single moms. There's a particular cause they're really interested in, or even education, or even soup kitchen, whatever it is that you want to focus on as the cause or building a legacy, etc. It starts from you, boy or girl, and we break it down to 3 different buckets of income. When you get into the advanced class, we'll dig a little bit deeper as to why do you want to build different buckets. However, if you already know what your purpose or the reason you're here is, think about different strategies as a way of helping you build that bucket of income. There's nothing wrong with building a particular bucket. Somebody has to do the work. So for example, if we translate it to different strategies as an investor, I know sometimes when you take different classes, we go back to the foundations again, fundamentals again. Fix and flip, if you don't have any funds yet, or even if you wholesale. By the way, my son is a teenager right now. I'm actually encouraging him to find wholesale deals. So if you don't have anything or don't have any investors yet, start from the community, because wholesale is basically buy something cheap and sell high. So there's a kid in my neighborhood. He collects golf balls, and then he cleans them and put them in egg boxes and sells each box for $5. So hey, that's earned income. And no money in deals. So same thing. And by the way, he's selling them for $5 a box, and people in the community are saying, hey, I'll help you sell it for $7 or $10. If that's the case, if you have the ability to do that, that's wholesale. Make sure you take a wholesale fee, a assignment fee, whatever it is. Okay, that's earned income. Why is that? Because any earned income, if you stop doing it, money is not going to come in. So if the kid in my neighborhood stopped collecting golf balls, there's no income. Or perhaps you can build a system. Find somebody who can do that for you. Once you have the clientele, like I mentioned, you can sell it for $10 if you have people who are willing to take them all or share the wealth with the wholesaler. Fix and flip, again, you can go to Andrew's webinar. So if you find a property, fix it and flip it. However, every time you do that, you need to continue to look for a good deal. So David, you know how that works. Sometimes it's not easy. However, be ready when opportunities come. So that's earned income. You have to trade time for money. Passive is usually what we call cash flow in the community, whether it is from rent or in this particular strategy, interest income, for example, is passive. It's not something you are working and trading your time for. By the way, disclaimer, this is the way we look at it. However, speak to your accountant, because sometimes it could be reflected differently when you claim tax, when you file your tax. For example, if you have a property and you sell it within a year, that's earned income. However, if you hold it for a year and a half, then that's considered more passive when you file your taxes, for example. So again, I'll give you the definition because I think that's how you should look at it as to how you allocate your time, where you are in life right now, what kind of income would suit you. However, a lot of people are thinking, hey, now I am in the community for a while, perhaps I don't want to focus as much on earned income and trade my time. However, a lot of the times I think when you pivot and when the opportunity comes, even though we want you to focus when you start, you might get into different strategies. And a lot of the times, as long as you understand how it works, you can make it work. So the way we look at it at Trust Your Talent is that it's like an academy. You have a major, perhaps you major in fix and flip, you major in, I put lease option here, income properties. Income properties could be a smaller unit, two unit, 2 doors, or it could be an apartment building for, say, for example, 10 doors, etc. Regardless, income property, I like that term better because even if you have the property and not cash flowing, that's not income property. You shouldn't call it income property. It's not bringing in you income. So when we talk about long-term hold or multifamily, or if it's a single family, as long as it cash flows, I consider it as income properties. So if you look at 3 different buckets of income and private lending or money in the buy, so private money, or for example, a lot of you are taking paper assets, that is portfolio income. A lot of the time is money on paper. So you can think about, for example, you have shares of certain companies. You might not be able to sell it quickly. A lot of the times, portfolio income is not liquid. However, this is where you should build your wealth. Okay. For example, Elon Musk is the richest person on earth. However, most of it is in stocks. He's not able to sell all his stocks at once. Otherwise, the value will go down. So a lot of the time, portfolio income is really money in the piggy bank. When it comes to fix and flip, think about it as money in the buy. You already have equity in it. So a lot of us are in BC or in Toronto or even some other provinces now. You have equity in your home. However, that's a piggy bank you're sitting on. You can take a HELOC. A lot of the times it's not as liquid. Even so, that's where you build your wealth, your long-term wealth. So after considering all that, then decide on what strategies would help you reach your financial goal. Once you pick your strategy, then go into different markets. So if you're already in BC, for example, you're not going to cash flow by holding even a triplex, even a 4 units, even a garden suite. A lot of the times you still don't cash flow. Then consider, is that a good market for the strategy I want to be focusing on? So that's when you pivot. Finally, property. It should be the last thing you look at. For this particular strategy, as the bank does the same thing. Sometimes if your property is in a more remote town, they look at the market and thinking that, hey, that's not a good market. That's not the strategy we want to focus on. So make sure strategy first, and then the market has to make sense, then property last. Buying property is like buying stocks. If you do it the other way around, if you just buy the property first, it's like buying stock. The only thing you can bank on is appreciation. If you do it in the reverse order. And that's when, by the way, if you're a wholesaler, if you're looking for opportunity, a lot of the times when people just buy properties first, they get into trouble. And then as investors, think about what solutions can I provide as solution provider. And a lot of the times that's when you see, for example, wholesaler pick up the deal or flippers pick up the deal, because that will work for their strategy. So fix and flip, distressed property could work in any market. However, we always say 3x3. If one strategy doesn't work, what could be my exit? If I cannot fix and flip, like stock, what if I buy a property and I'm not able to sell it for a profit right now? Think about different things you can do. I'll hold it or convert it to Airbnb. If it doesn't work in that market, could I do student rental, rooming housing, etc., etc.? So you have to look at different exit strategy once you get to the property. Again, from yourself first. Start from yourself first. Look at different buckets of income, then strategy, market, and property. I know this is very basic for people already in the community. However, every time I talk about it, I still feel very passionate about it because personally, I always have different realizations as to what they mean. So in the advanced class, earned income means accumulating capital, because I don't want you to spend every single dollar you earned and trade your time for and a lot of sweat equity in it. That's not sustainable. However, you should still have earned income to accumulate capital. So earned income, I consider as an investor, capital accumulation. Passive income, I consider just cash flow. So portfolio income, I consider as wealth creation. So if you look at, by the way, we also talk about being an accredited investor. What does that mean, being a creditor? So in Canada, for example, you have to have accumulated $5 million of net worth, for example, or liquid $1 million to invest, or earned income, family 300,000. If it's just you, 200,000 consecutively for 2 years. Regardless, if you have looked at it and wanting to make sure you have the portfolio and make sure you want to be the top 1%, then portfolio is where you should focus on. By the way, Airbnb, midterm, short-term rental, is a very active strategy, even though it could create cash flow when it comes to a single family home. So single family homes don't cash flow, let's be honest. Sometimes it does, in rare occasions in the States where Richard is. However, a lot of the times they don't cash flow, let's be honest. Or you have a lot of equity in it, you don't have a mortgage on it. So usually we find a way to make it cash flow. Midterm, short-term rental is one of the strategies you could consider. Another one is lease option. You just have to one door, one house, you can make it cash flow. So understand how different strategies work. By now you realize that, hey, all this is about planning. So if you haven't done this, personally, I already have a very complicated version of income and expenses. It doesn't have to be. When you're starting, make it your starting point. If you play the cash flow game, anybody play the cash flow game, the board game? There you go. So this might look very familiar to you. And look at it as your own situation. I mean, even though when you play a board game, like when you're in class, simulation, however, how it translates to you when it comes to income and expenses. So before you come to the mentorship, or even when you speak to your strategy coach, make sure you have it ready. Because if you don't fail to plan, then you plan to fail. Start from looking at what your assets are and liability. By the way, if you have taken Accounting 101, what is income statement? What is financial statement? Consider yourself as a corporation. And on the flip side, when we talk about corporation, we always say that it is an entity, just like you, but it doesn't have a soul. It still has credit. It's still reporting taxes every year. It can do businesses with other partners. However, now you're planning for yourself. Look at yourself as a business. Every time we talk about, hey, business decision, what is your financial planning? Go back to the fundamentals. If you're not familiar with what asset and liabilities are, make sure you go to our channel, YouTube channel, Trust Your Talent, and watch Tim's My Daily Dose with Tim, Season 2, Episode 2. I mean, you can binge watch. If you want to focus on what asset and liabilities are, I mean, a lot of the time still it's fundamentals. And I think if you're really good at speaking to the fundamentals, it's also a lot easier for you to speak to your investors, even outside the community. And even when they're talking about, hey, I want financial independence and financial freedom, what does that mean? Anybody want to give me the definition of one of them, financial independence or financial freedom? Unmute yourself. Then you can tell your kid, you can decide either to define financial independence or financial freedom. Unmute yourself. I'll let you go when you're ready to define it. And that should be one of your financial goals as well for everybody.
Okay, so do you mind repeat the question again? Financial
Independence and financial freedom. Can you define one of them or your own way of explaining it?
financial freedom is you are free to use your time and the money on anything that you wish. I'm not too sure about the independence because I think
Focus
I
on freedom.
on the freedom more. So yeah.
No worries. No worries. Thank you, David, for sharing that.
Yeah.
So you can tell a lot of the times by the way people speak, David perhaps is a golden retriever. Because we focus on how we feel. We focus on, yes, financial freedom is have the FU money to do whatever you want with whoever you want. For the analyticals, if you want the actual definition in terms of numbers, financial freedom is when your passive income covers your basic expenses.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, David. So yes, eventually, that's my definition as well. Have the FU money to travel whenever I want with whomever I want. By the way, where I am right now, it's way earlier in the morning. So it's only 8 a.m. for me. And you can do this anywhere. Thanks for the technology. Anybody read the book 4 Hour Working Week? 4 Hour Working Day? Okay, Malaz, you have. So basically, the book is pretty old, but same thing. Back then, it's like MSN Messenger and emails. So same thing. Now you have Zoom. Now you have emails and on your phone, on your watch. You can read your emails anywhere, anytime. And Richard, are you still in Korea?
I am in Japan. I'm doing several deals right now in the US remotely from Japan. I'm closing my first property remotely in Cleveland from Japan. So that's cool.
Yay! So there you go. That's freedom for you. And you still have the time to join us. So thank you. Same thing. I close quite a few deals when I'm here. So it doesn't matter anymore. And again, you want to have that freedom. So also if you're sick, I think that's important, especially reaching my age now. Once you have the passive income, to not worry about having to work. So, and reach out to Francis. He has a very good story. So financial freedom is when you have passive income to cover your basic expenses. And think about how that translates to your life. That means that if you're sick or you don't feel like working, I mean, Richard and I, we do this by choice. We love it. So sure, we have to close, we have to qualify, etc. while we're away. However, you know how to generate income on your own terms. So financial independence, I'll run the numbers to show exactly how it works. Financial independence is basically, regardless it's passive or active or portfolio income, by the way, you can replace your living expenses or perhaps your income if you're still working right now. By the way, that's on how much you make, how much you keep aside. And when we talk about income and tax, income protection and tax, it's how much you keep. At the same time, you have to protect your wealth. So again, you have accountants and lawyers. Accountants will help you how to save. They don't tell you exactly how to protect yourself. That's not their job. Lawyers will tell you how to protect yourself at the same time. If you're overprotective, you're going to spend so much money setting up your corporation, buy insurance, it might not be profitable. That's why it's so important to build a good power team. Like I mentioned, everything we do here, there's a reason, there's a purpose. There's so many different courses within Trust Your Talent. So that's why you need to focus and know where you want to go. Everybody will start from the core courses. That's what I was telling you about starting from you. We did quickly about finding your why, and you decide how you want to set your goals. Short-term, mid-term, long-term. By the way, if you have a lot on the go, I've also received students' goal-setting sheets, and there's a lot they want to achieve. And it is our job, and also our strategy coach's job as well, to lead you along the way. So even during the mentorship, we will tell you to finish the homework because your time with us and in the market is limited. And I realized that, hey, it is okay if you have a goal. And once we're in the trenches, we realize we have to pivot. Regardless, you have somewhere to start. Okay. So this year, we're going to, again, teach you how to fish. So everybody has to finish the core courses before going in the field and start your mentorship. We didn't force that, then we realized, hey, it is important, even though we might have to pivot. We're just normal as an investor. Okay, and our goal, again, is to check your blind spots. And then we realized everybody should understand the fundamentals. Business fundamentals, talk about tax, how to protect yourself, set up corporations, etc., etc. Maybe write a business plan. And to stretch property, like I mentioned, force appreciate, because we want to make sure you take control. Because it's a strategy that everybody could understand and utilize, it's a fundamental course now. And financing fundamentals. We might not be able to get into, for example, RSP, etc., in the fundamental class. However, everybody should understand how money works. And I love my course, Financing Fundamentals, because this is a strategy, perhaps not even in real estate. It will apply when you have other streams of income. So for us, I still have a JOB, and at the same time, we're coaching, we're consulting. That's a different streams of income. However, again, look at your business as how do you get funds? How do you strategize, maximize your ROI? So real estate is a hard strategy. You can also think about different things that we put together as soft strategy, because you need to understand how to negotiate. And I consider creative financing could either be hard or soft strategies, because like some of our financial freedom fighters, they basically just leverage private lending and reach your financial freedom goals. However, they also understand how hard strategies work. So everything you see here will come together as tools in your toolbox. And once you're educated, you'll know how to pull the tools out of the box to get the deals done. So just a little bit about myself. It's not about me. I just want to share my experience as to, hey, how it translates to investing. And perhaps you're on the same journey and it could resonate with you as well. Maybe you can pull some of my experiences. I'm pretty sure we have something in common. So I'm born and raised in Taiwan. I left Taiwan until I was about 17 years old. However, I basically come home every year and I stay at home for 10 years. And I have financial freedom. Now, however, when I started, I didn't. I have time freedom. So I came home every year for 1 to 3 months every year. However, financially, it wasn't easy. So we have to budget enough money to fly back. And because my kids are young, I decided to stay at home with them for 10 years. When I finally went back to work, that's when I realized financial education is so important. Because like I said, it was a little bit harder to save money and fly a family of 4 across the ocean. We did it not because living cost is cheaper here. However, once we started working, I realized that it got even worse because I had to pay tax. I had less time freedom. It just didn't make sense. And we didn't save any money at all because we had to travel. And I realized that the only wealth we have of that whole chart, the portfolio, no cash flow, earned income, however, anything we had accumulated as wealth was our home. So real estate. And that's why I wanted to learn more about real estate. So that's my journey. And I started focusing on lease option because actually I had a lot of fear. Surprisingly, when we did the survey, not a lot of people have a lot of fear in the group, even though you're starting now. I had a lot of fear. So I didn't want to get into multifamily. I just want to start with single family. So I did flips and I focused on lease option. And what I love about lease option when I started was that, hey, help me reach my financial freedom goal, because my goal was to replace my income. Remember, I mentioned that financial freedom cover your basic expenses. However, for me, my income didn't cover our family expenses. My husband covers most of it. So I look at it as, hey, if I can have passive income that replaces my income, that's my first goal. So whatever your situation is, everything you do should be goal-oriented. And I also mentioned that I didn't plan very well. I didn't plan to fail. However, I didn't plan very well. I wanted to accumulate all buckets of income. I got into so many deals. I had a whole list of deals I was in. However, I didn't reach financial freedom for a very long time. I mean, within the community, Trust Your Talent has only been around for 4 years now. I didn't reach my financial freedom until the 4th year, and we already have so many freedom fighters in the room. When I decided to put out my book, I wasn't financially free, and I already had the title, so I worked a little bit harder. I think that's a good motivation for myself to make sure I reach financial freedom. And my goal at the time, if you start to raise funds, talk to a lot of investors, if you have read the book, you realize that everything we teach at Trust Your Talent is basically what we all follow. The goal SMP, very basics. I follow exactly the same. I probably focus on 3 different strategies. However, being the money partner, so creative financing, helped me get into, say, multifamilies, because I'm the money partner. I started to get into it from the money side and learn about it. And then after I reached financial freedom, I started to look into multifamily, because depending on the strategy in the market, it needed some time to stabilize, especially a lot of the deals I was looking at. So I focused on creating cash flow first. Everything we do, there's a goal. My goal at the time, by the time the book was published, Trust Your Talent just got started. So that's something you can start to read. By the time you started investing, it might sound very basic to you. However, it's exactly the steps we follow. So everything is goal-oriented. Like I said, starting from education, is learn more about money. That's the only wealth we created. Writing the book, it's to tell investors what I do. And even my parents, my mom, I couldn't tell them or explain to them what I did. The book actually helped a lot by explaining it to other people. And it's crazy how hard for me to speak in front of other people. So I remember when I took the class raising funds, I was horrible. My voice was shaking. I went over time. I just sounded like I was mumbling. So one of the things, even here today, one of the goals for me is to make it easy for myself. Anytime I have to start speaking, it'll be easy and it comes naturally. I can understand and feel the audience. I mean, it's a virtual setting. I love to speak to people in person as well. And I had a lot of opportunities to do that also as an investor, because I do think everybody has something to share. Perhaps you're an investor like me as an immigrant, as a mom, or you're an investor like Richard, you're young and you started with a really good education. Everybody's stories is unique. However, we all follow the same path. So for me, another goal, I use this as an example, how you look at your goal. If we built a home, so we look at, if we built a home, we need, say, $1 million, $2 million. How do I help myself raise that fund? If I want to afford another $100,000, to me, when I started, $100,000 means one lease option, joint venture. We want to keep our mortgage ability to buy our home. So each lease option is another $100,000 of mortgage payment. So everything you do could be goal oriented. So once you find your financial freedom goal, and once you reach that, ask yourself, what's beyond financial freedom? Even for myself, I think if you don't have fulfillment, if you're just telling me, I want to make money, you're not in the right place because you have to go a little bit deeper. It sounds simple. The steps are simple. However, it's not always easy. That's how we always say it. So if you don't have a strong enough why, once you encounter some obstacles, it's so easy to give up. Okay, so that's why we kept saying, hey, you want to be motivated. You want to be surrounded with people with the same mindset, because once you reach financial freedom, what's next? So I was really lucky that I'm part of the community from day one, because now I can give back. At the same time, if I'm not financially free, I have to worry about a lot of things. I don't think I have the mental space to give. Same thing for you. If it's like if you're on the airplane, give yourself the oxygen mask first. So take care of yourself first. So really, I think once you reach financial freedom, if you don't have a purpose, that's how I felt. When I reached financial freedom, I'm like, what's next? I didn't feel very motivated. And I kept thinking, I need a purpose, I need a purpose. However, purpose sounds like a big word. Again, if it's too complex, people don't move forward. And then I heard this quote, everybody's purpose should be help other people, make the world a better place. Help other people, inspire other people. That's why I'm sure your story will inspire somebody else. So I was really lucky. I got a lot of opportunity to speak. So when I mentioned that, hey, my goal was to be able to speak in front of people. And even after COVID, there was a lot of opportunities when there's live investment club or at Trust Your Talent. We had a lot of opportunities to share my experience, or perhaps one day you'll share your experience with the community as well. So if you're a new immigrant, I have a podcast about it. If you speak Chinese, there's one. You want to know how to get started or why I focus on lease option, private lending, etc. Reach out, just like my daily dose with Tim. There's a podcast for you, or there's my daily dose with Tim that could help you just have the basic understanding of it. So our goal is to help everybody reach financial freedom in 2 to 5 years. If you're just joining thinking, I want to be financially free, I cannot guarantee that next week. Our goal is 2 to 5 years. Some people reach it within a matter of a year. Perhaps they already have some resources and they're already in the game. However, regardless, once you're in the community, our goal is within 2 to 5 years, you're going to stand on stage and claim that Freedom Fighter Award. So if we're not making a difference in other people's life, we're in the wrong business. I always say, by now, if you haven't learned even one thing from me, I'm okay if you log out right now. Especially for a lot of you, it's dinner time, or you have to wash your kids, bathe at this hour. If I'm not creating any value, I'm okay if you log off. I'm in the wrong business, or you're in the wrong place. However, if there's even just one thing I said, even as an investor, you already have some aha moments, write it down, and I appreciate you. And every time I start a webinar or a class, I always send out appreciation or gratitude saying, hey, I'm in the position to help. Okay. So if there are positions or situations where you could help, make sure you do that, big or small. Even if it's somebody in front of you at the grocery store, didn't have enough money, that's your opportunity to help, to chip in $10 or so. Every opportunity is there. And we're so fortunate to be healthy, to have the resources here to help. You'll have computers, you all have internet to be able to learn. And even if you just pass down one nugget today, you're already helping somebody make the world a better place. And why are we different? Because at Trust Your Talent, all of us have to be active investors. By the way, even student ambassadors are active investors. So you're in the right community. We mentioned markets. So even if it doesn't work in Canada, we also have curriculum in the States. And a lot of us already investing in the States. So the largest and most complete financial education. And if you're in the community for a while, you realize that, hey, not just real estate, now we have paper assets. And all of us are constantly looking at different ways to improve. So if it's health that you're looking at this year, a lot of people in the community are focusing on health. And if you want to eat really healthy this year, if that's one of your goals, Mike, for example, is very good with cooking and understand food. And also we have a few caterers, actually celebrity caterers in our community as well. So by the way, that just shows you that, hey, I just remember there's so many people in the community, we can make each other's life a lot easier. So We have the most curriculum. As you can see, I'm pretty sure among all the strategies, you'll find something that suits you. And we focus on the one-on-one support. That's why our team is getting bigger and bigger. We underline the word education only because I'm not here so you can buy my deal, be my joint venture partner. I want you to be able to fish, like I said, not giving you the fish. We're not allowed to have deals with students until you're mature, until perhaps you reach financial freedom or you have been in the community for a while and then invest for a while. However, it's education only. We focus on sustainable wealth creation. And all that translates to their goals, and there could be short-term, mid-term, long-term goals. If you look at different vehicles, usually when it's short-term, it's more expensive. So if you look at flips or wholesale, it's usually done pretty quickly. So you can flip paper quickly. And what I love about the short-term strategies, I also notice that, hey, you don't have to have funds to start. Wholesale, for example, or if you already have investors, you can start from flipping. Actually, any deals you see here, any strategies, LO, by the way, that's lease option. SA, service accommodation. Why don't we just say Airbnb? Because that's just a platform. Service accommodation could also mean midterm, long-term, or student rentals or executive rentals, okay, to create good cash flow. So if you notice the different terms and also the OPMs, so financial vehicles, usually short-term is more expensive. Credit cards, 21% of interest, for example. Promissory notes, so depending on the position and different deals, usually it's short-term. It could be a year, sometimes you can extend it to 2 years, etc. However, usually bridge mortgage, promissory note, etc., the interest rate is a little bit higher. So midterm, joint venture, JV, perhaps you have to share the wealth, share some equity. Agreement for sale, VTB, we use a lot of abbreviation. However, once you start the class, these are the terms we're going to start to speak to our investors with. So if there's any terms you're not familiar with, raise your hand. So general partnership or limited partnership, that's GPLP. Okay, that could be more passive, or if you're the general partner, that could be very active, etc. So look at different strategies. You could have 3 different strategies. You could aim for something short-term, something long-term. By the way, when I started, I had some properties. My husband and I qualified as long-term strategy. And they're smaller multi, so we personally have to qualify under 4 units. However, even though we consider that as our long-term strategy, we actually sold all those units before some of our lease option matured. So again, as an investor, it doesn't matter as long as you know how to pivot. So look at these different vehicles. We're going to focus on basically private lending. So not credit cards, but perhaps promissory notes. We call it private, even though private could be RSP, etc., like I mentioned before. So another poll, your goals for REI, because now it's about money and cash flow. So Malas, can you launch the second one? Thank you. I see people already putting your answers in. Different webinars are different depending on the audience. All right. Sometimes I do a survey of people in different age groups. So it's pretty consistent as to what the financial goals are. Are people changing your answers? I think everybody put their answers in. Can everybody see the share results? Okay. Most likely consistent cash flow, accumulate capital, so money can work for me. Okay, thank you for sharing that. So cash flow is number 1 in this group. Okay, so I highlighted money and cash flow. So thank you for that. That actually resonates with most people here. Number 1 is cash flow. Number 2 is accumulate capital. I mentioned that private lending is usually starting from private lenders. If you look at institutional, that's where the banks can still qualify you. At the same time, if you're looking at multifamily or bigger commercial units, the property itself will qualify for a mortgage. At the same time, even though we say that, a lot of the times they still look at if you're a seasoned investor, if you have experience before they approve the mortgage. Do you have experience? Are you working with somebody with experience? At least that's the kind of information they will collect. Or depending on your net worth and what multiples of the property value that you can afford, etc. So if you look at the chart, usually the road of least resistance is on top because everybody has experience with credit cards, right? I mean, David's kid, probably not. Or perhaps, David, you give him a supplementary card. Regardless, no. Usually you start from the bank, cash. And by the way, as an investor, I like something that could be quick and easy. So if somebody's telling me I have RSP, but I have to move it, I have to wait 6 weeks or so to get access to the fund. I usually love to start with, of course, the easiest. People will go to the bank. Sometimes they find private lender to make up the difference to get the projects done. So if you look at the chart, I look at it as what people are familiar with or the least road of resistance to start. So there's also mono lender, not just the banks, even institutions. There are alternative lenders. So sometimes there are lenders that only focus on mortgage. And like the banks you're familiar with, they also provide line of credits. They also have credit cards. They have deposit accounts, savings. A lot of the times, they're still institutions want to go through mortgage broker and get into different deals. And go down the line, we're going to talk about private lenders today. So private lenders could be, private money could be joint venture as well, or RSP. Or if you know how contracts work, it could be agreement for sale, vendor take back, or seller financing is what we call in the States. So who are private lenders and what is private lending? Private lenders could be anybody as long as you have funds and you know how it works. So before I started investing, I didn't know that the private lending world existed and nobody would approach me for private money. So like a lot of you mentioned that, hey, what if I don't have capital? So you buy and sell to create capital. That's your earned income. So you can buy and sell and create wealth. You can buy and sell to create wealth through portfolio income or find something that could cash flow. So this is the process. Locate a deal first. I personally think when students get started, it's really hard to locate the deal because they don't know how to underwrite it. Locate a deal first. When you're starting, you might have to analyze a lot of deals. That is okay, because once you do that, it gets easier. So perhaps when you locate 100 deals, 10 is worth going forward with. You might end up with 2 deals. So probably 2%, that sounds like a lot, but that shouldn't stop you from going forward. I'll give you one example. Because we just finished the creative financing class. I asked everybody to find different deals. We have 3 lease option deals presented. Nobody presented any other type of deals because everybody is saying there's no deals out there. That's often the case when it's already presented in the retail market, profits are already made. However, sometimes when, for example, mortgage environment change, then all of a sudden, once you get more creative, good deals are found, great deals are created. I only look at 3 deals, and just for the purpose of the class, I found 1 deal that could actually work and anybody in class should have did the due diligence and get to the next step. Regardless, when you're starting, it's hard to locate a deal. Anybody heard the expression that once you are looking for an opportunity, all of a sudden they pop up everywhere? For example, if you're looking for a red car, you never see red cars on streets. All of a sudden, you see red cars everywhere. And when I wanted to buy a RAV4, I thought there's not a lot of Toyota RAV4 everywhere. And all of a sudden, once I bought my car, it's everywhere on the streets. So same thing for opportunities. If you put it out there, you're going to find a lot of them. Once you do that, do your due diligence. Run the legal paperwork. Okay, even when you run the paperwork and have it, we call it under contract, there are still exit strategies. You can still exit, or there are terms to protect you. So that's one of the important things you're going to learn in the wholesale class. We say put it under contract. Basically, that means you have control over it, but you might still be able to exit. Okay, so number 3, paperwork, then find a financial institution, sometimes private funds to fund the deal. Number 5, that word is hard to say for an ESL. That basically just means that money channels forward. Fund events, then you just sit back and enjoy the deal. Then finally, get the cash flow, get a loan repayment at the end. Then make your money work again. Go through the cycle, go through the process all over again. So there's some terms, if you're not familiar with, reach out. So private lending could be really, really flexible. It's really up to you what you want to put in there. So one of the things I put in there is credit check, because by the way, my credit score is not the best right now. And I just checked. It actually went down a little bit again. However, do I still look for investors? Am I still investing? Yes. And I don't actually credit check for the sake of looking at their credit score. I look at what's on their credit report, what's their repayment behavior. So I put a question mark there. It's up to you if you want to ask them to provide their credit report. All of the things here, it's up to you. Business decision. We say no appraisal. Sometimes you can still ask for an appraisal. There's no reason why you can't. So even though you don't have to find somebody who have the perfect credit score. You don't have to go through appraisal, but it's really up to you. Okay. Broker fees. It also depends, because a lot of private lending deals comes from mortgage brokers, especially when you're starting. You might not know where to find it. However, I do think that within the community, there are enough opportunities to do that. I mean, for myself, I've gone through both channels. I've gone through mortgage brokers. I've also just word of mouth, or I even met somebody the first time. I felt really good connecting with them. So I'm often the first private deal for quite a lot of people in the community. However, sometimes you can say, hey, I'm not comfortable with that. I want to make sure you have already dealt with private money in the past. It's really up to you. Okay. If you have applied for a mortgage, you know, sometimes they ask you for a 90-day proof that you have the down payment in the account. However, for a private deal, it's up to you. It doesn't have to be there. Most likely, I don't care that you have the funds, the down payment there. LTV stands for loan to value, meaning that, or sometimes after repair value, ARV is also another term we look at. Any loan to value, meaning that, hey, even though the property is appraised at $1 million today, usually the banks or private lenders don't go over $1 million. However, what if it's a flip situation? What if they still need the fund to get it done? So I have done deals where the loan to value is over 100%. Again, it's really up to you, and you have to understand why that is. Doesn't mean you overpay. There's a lot of different reasons behind it. So benefits to the lender, like I mentioned, is flexible. And then you can decide if you want monthly cash flow, or if you just want a balloon payment or overall payment at the end. If you don't need the cash flow, you just want to be able to build your portfolio, you could also do that. That's basically what it means. In terms of cost of borrowing, to the lender, basically, usually the borrower pays for all the lawyer fees and expenses associated to the private lending. So again, broker fees, lender fee, etc., etc. You can also charge what we call a lender fee as well. Okay. So again, a lot of business decision. Overall, it's still a pretty simple way I found to get passive income. So if you already, like I said, when I started, I'm sitting on the piggy bank, our property. So to make a property cash flow, sometimes I speak to my investors in a way that they can understand. I'll say, hey, take some equity out of your home. I will make sure the interest payment will help you cover your mortgage and some. So you're sitting on the piggy bank portfolio income equity, and you're generating passive cash flow. Okay. So again, another way of making single family homes cash flow, or even your residence. So benefits to the borrower, because the borrower might not have the best credit score. They probably already borrowed a lot of money. They have high debt ratio, meaning that they already borrowed a lot of money. In an environment where it is the market is fluctuating a lot, I do think that you should be careful when the borrowers are over leveraging. By the way, there are some stories out there already. And in a real life scenario, I found that sometimes the borrower are so quiet because something went wrong. That's sometimes the case, sometimes. So if you're active in the community, it's not a huge community. You hear things. So sometimes we say you're only as good as your last deal. because we hear things. And it sounds harsh. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So we look at track record. And I would be careful when their debt ratios are high. However, make sure you have control. That's not the end of the world, and perhaps that's not the reason you don't get into it. However, look at the reason why. Are they over leveraging? I found people who are over leveraging are usually the people that focus on one market, one strategy. So if that one market, one strategy didn't work, sometimes they over leverage. And when the market is good, they can always get new funds to fund the old funds. However, there comes a time sometimes they're not able to do that. Number 3, flexible income and down payment proof, like I mentioned earlier. So when I look at their credit report or looking at their resume, if they have a good portfolio, they have experience, they know how to manage, that's usually a good sign. And there's a limited funds out there. In the fundamentals, we talk about the theory of money and how money is created. Really, there's unlimited resources. But I don't suggest people who don't know how debt or money work to over leverage. Okay? So we always say, if they're lazy money, then make sure it's working for you. If your credit score is perfect, by the way, you might have left money on the table. You might be able to apply for more. So everything we do in the private lending world, or even when you're looking at ROI, always remember simple things, these 4 things: how much in, how much out, for how long, and what's your security. By the way, if you look at number 1, number 2, that's basically your ROI, because how much you get with your investment that you put in, that's your ROI. How much out divided by how much in, that is ROI. And again, why we like real estate, because it's hard asset. There's collateral. However, it depends on the terms. Sometimes you don't put a lien on the property. That's hard money, and I don't suggest people do that anymore. I mean, I mentioned that in the previous class, and then students come after class to me saying, I still did a promissory note without any collateral because I trust this person in the community. Business decision, if you really can trust that person, it's up to you. However, in the environment today, there are enough opportunities. I always suggest that, hey, put a lien on it. Or if the collateral of the property they're actually using the money for might not work, make sure they have other collaterals. I've put a collateral on a truck in the past, and you can do different things. However, I think in the environment today, make sure there's security and collateral. So let's run through the numbers. Simple number, $1,000 means that per month, by the way, you can do a balloon payment, meaning a lump sum at the end, or if you're the kind of person that's looking for cash flow, like I'm looking at cash flow today. So I want to make sure I get cash flow every month from my borrower. To me, that also means that they can manage their cash flow because they have monthly obligations, just like paying me as a lender. On the flip side, I can understand sometimes when they're flipping a project, they don't get the profit until the end of the project. So they would probably prefer to pay a balloon payment at the end. I'll give you an example as to, for example, you use your RSP as your source of private money. RSP, as the lender, I'm not going to touch that money until I retire. So with my RSP money, I'm okay with not receiving monthly cash flow. Annual cash flow or balloon payment. However, there's some regulations and requirements with RSP. They still have to pay at the end of the year some, and regardless, that depends on the vehicle. However, if you look at the nature of your investment and what you want to achieve, it could be different. So in this example, $1,000 per month for a year. What is your ROI? You put in 100,000. Really simple number. So it's 12,000, divide that by 100. 12%. Okay. And if you want to understand what should be the interest I can expect for a particular deal, it really depends. If you already have a deal on the go, reach out to me, or perhaps you already have a strategy coach, run the numbers. However, 12%, 15%, that's a lot more than what you get from the bank. You have to understand why they can pay you 12%. Why can they afford 12%? That's why you have to understand different strategies. It sounds nice. At the same time, seasoned investor, learn how to make it work. What if you only have $40,000? What if you only have $40,000? And say, for example, I have $40,000 and that's all I have. And Caesar has $60,000 and he's willing to accept 6% of return. So even though he doesn't know where the investor I'm going to work with and lend out that $100,000, Caesar trusted me. So he lent me that $60,000 at 6%. So now it's a three-way, could be joint venture, a three-way deal. So that's run the numbers now. So I have to pay Caesar $300 per month, and I get $12,000 a year. I'll say that again. So $12,000 a year is the total interest. At the same time, I'm paying Caesar $300. So the ROI, I should minus the cost of $60,000. Typo there. Disregard that. I just realized that. So $12,000 is what you get, minus my cost of borrowing, so $3,600 to Caesar. And now, can somebody run the numbers for me? What is my return? I get 8,400, divide that by 40,000. Okay, let me pull out my calculator as well. 84, divide that by, I have 40,000. Did everybody get 21%? Yes, Laura? Okay, Ken, good. So even though I'm leveraging, my return is actually better. So that's the power of leveraging. It's okay if you don't have the funds. And I realize that sometimes if there's something we're lacking, that's actually making us work a lot bit harder, looking for funds and different resources as well to make sure we get the deals done. And sometimes the lender, so if you're the lender, it's up to you. You can charge a 1 to 5% fee. The mortgage broker, even though earlier we mentioned that there might not be mortgage broker fee, sometimes there still is, if that's where you found your deal. Lawyer fee between $1,500 and $2,500. If it's over $60,000, so private lending could be $20,000, $24,000. Sometimes you want to save the lawyer fees. However, as soon as it's over $60,000, it used to be $50,000. If it's over $60,000, you need to have 2 lawyers for lender and the borrower. If it's under, you could just have 1 lawyer that help the borrower and the lender to complete the transaction. Okay, even though from a protection point of view, you should still have 2 lawyers. We talk about how much you keep and what's your protection. That's basically how you structure a corporation. So in this situation, if you just find 1 lawyer, save the money, however, you don't have the protection. Okay, so look at it that way. And in this webinar, we're going to go through some simple numbers. Sometimes we run through different scenarios in the actual class. For the purpose of learning today, we'll just run through some simple numbers. So similarly, from the previous example, you get $2,000 per month at 12% annual interest. So every year, 200,000 times 12%. That's 12%. So scenario 2, again, what if I only have 100,000? And this time, perhaps I will borrow from Mike 100,000 at 6%. So same thing, this is just review. So even if you don't have the funds, you have to borrow some of the money in order to have the deal done. So now Mike is my partner. I'm paying him 6%. Mike, if you have cash, it's better to make your lazy money work. So 24,000 is the profit. However, I share 6,000 with Mike. My profit is 18,000. How much in, how much out? 18,000 in, I put in 100,000. So my return is 18%. Okay, another example of leveraging. So if you ask me, this is not set in stone. Really, it depends. 6 to 12% for first mortgage. I know at Trust Your Talent, students will charge at least probably around 10, roughly for the first mortgage. Second mortgage, it depends on, again, loan to value, the property, the market, the experience of the borrower. The second mortgage could be different. The interest rate could be different. And I mentioned that, hey, I'm working with people in the community because I trust them. I know that mortgage brokers are professionals. However, I trust the people I know. I've worked with mortgage brokers. They don't necessarily lend the money to somebody I know. So even though they give you a resume. So in class, we reviewed a few resumes from the borrowers. However, I found that even though even when I go through mortgage brokers, sometimes I still lend to people I know. Again, it's not a very big community. So once you're in it for a while, you probably know a lot of people who are active, because there are people who are active, consistently have deals. There are also people in the community that are kind of passive and they have their own investors, their own groups. However, people who are active, once you're in the community, sometimes you interact with each other. And I do think that besides everything I mentioned, how much in, how much out, for how long, the collateral, really, it's about trust. So when you have trust, even when things go wrong, I have the confidence that, for example, Richard, I have the confidence that something goes wrong in the market, not everything will go according to plan, as we always know. I trust that he will do his best. He will do his best to make sure that investors are protected. And I think sometimes it's really about how your partner or how investors deal with different situations. That really shows their integrity, their way of dealing with different problems. Are they really problem solvers? By the time you're educated and you're trained, sometimes you even have to jump in, even when you're passive, to work with your partners. Because by now, I trust all the partners I'm working with. And I don't know if you heard that last year. There's a lot of things happening last year. And I found that, hey, as long as it's people that I trust, we can work something out and work together. If not, then the security is really important. Okay. By the way, if you're investing in different markets, the security could mean different things. Because sometimes you can put a collateral, sometimes you can put a lien, in some provinces you can't. Regardless, another layer of protection is knowing what different things you could do. Different things you can do. That I consider as security as well. So if you're working with a more sophisticated or experienced investor, if you need to get your money out, even if the project is not complete, I'm sure they have the ability or no other investors who could replace your funds. Or how effective are they with refinancing? Are they experienced? A lot of the times things are out of our control. However, know what other things you could do. You could sell it, you could refinance it. That's why, by the way, in a market, if your security is in a market that's not liquid, meaning that there's not a lot of transaction, it might be hard to sell. So those are the things you might want to consider once you start to look at different securities and collaterals at the same time. So again, 4 pillars. At the same time, I think the foundation is critical trust. And I want to share this video with you as well.
We don't like we've learned a long time ago is that you can't make a good deal with a bad person. Just forget it. Now, if you think you can drop a contract that is going to work against a bad person, they're going to win. For one thing, they probably enjoy litigation, but Berkshire Hathaway as an entity, or me personally, or anything, we don't want to spend our life, doing that sort of thing. And besides, the bad guys win. They know more games. They may lose eventually, but it's no way to spend your life.
So this might sound pessimistic. I just want to stress the point of really finding the right partner. So even if you're as experienced as him, Warren Buffett, again, you might have 20 deals. One might go wrong. Regardless, as long as you can sustain and go through it. And really, we do everything we could to protect yourself at the same time. Make sure you have the right partner. That's why I love to have a community that we created. Because, hey, I can't say 100% that I can vouch for everybody. We've had problems with students in the past. Regardless, in the end, it's really those who can sustain and show that they have the ethics and they can continue in the community. So I use that clip actually for joint venture. It's important. The due diligence in joint venture is to underwrite the character and their experiences. Promissory note, same thing. If you're dealing with the investor directly, how do you trust them? The promissory note is so simple. Borrower, lender, and principal amount. Again, who are involved? How much in, how much out, how long, and what's the collateral? Okay, that's it. So when is it going to end? That is how long. And basically the term 2, 3, 4 That's how much you're going to get out. Okay. Benefits of private money. So we already talked about it. It could be open, meaning that, hey, even though we say we're going to use the money for a year, but perhaps I can complete the project in 4 months. It could be open, so I can return the funds anytime. Because sometimes when you're in a project, it's hard to say. So similarly, broker fee, etc. Just a review of a few things we've already talked about. This is the actual promissory note, one of the notes I had. I love this example because it's so simple. That is it. That is basically it. So sometimes it's just 2 pages, but it covers all the terms. However, the first one, I didn't put a lien on it. Going forward, I always put a lien on the property. Okay. So another example, by the way, if you're familiar with London, Ontario, where Western University is, I had a project, similar numbers. Of course, the property value went up quite a lot since 3 years ago. So the purchase price was $200,000. We knew going in that we need to renovate and budget $70,000 for it. We actually budgeted in the $25,000 later on because we realized curb appeal is crazy important. It's not a lot, $25,000. So we raised another $25,000 later on. I'll show you because this is basically from my line of credit. I'm the money partner in this particular deal. So if you just look at the numbers, after repair, it was $435,000. Only after 4 months. I didn't put the actual house in it. If you have my book, that's one of the examples I have in there. So $200,000, $70,000 renovation cost, landscaping, $25,000. So $435 minus $295. By the way, we didn't have a bank involved in this project. We raised that $200,000 privately. The good thing is if you have investors with cash and you don't have to go through mortgage qualification, you could go pretty fast. So that's one of the benefits. That's one of the benefits of private lending. Flexible and quick. We borrow $70,000 and $25,000 at 12%. Okay. So even though 12% sounds like a lot, really for the 4 months, it's only costing us $3,800. If $3,800 means that you're going to get the project done, even though it's 12%. Again, for $140,000 in profit, our investor get paid $3,800. We still profit $136. So where did I get that $25,000 from? Even though this one is a 0% interest balance transfer. Sometimes there's a balance transfer fee of 1% or so. So I believe the MBNI line of credit is still available right now. So I love MBNA because it's simple and they transfer the balance to your checking account, wherever you want to use the funds. The BMO and other balance transfer, they usually require you to transfer the balance to another credit card. Regardless, that means you have funds available to you, even though I pay 12% in that case. So I leverage that from a 0% balance transfer credit card. Let's say, use the same example. Our total proceed is 140. So ROI, as a practice, you can pull out your calculator. 140, divide that by 295. That's our return on investment. What if we use the balance transfer? So even though the transfer fee is $250,000, I found that $25,000 basically from the credit card. So if you look at return on investment, once you leverage and know how to leverage, again, we borrow money only to make money. That's the definition of good debt versus bad debt. So by doing so, we increase our return on investment about 4%. Not major, however, you can see how you can improve your ROI by leveraging. As an investor, not set in stone, and we update these numbers periodically, because when I started investing, we probably would be looking at $200 per door. However, the market changed. I know there are people with income property at $100 or $120 per door. Regardless, just use this as a guideline. How quickly can you reach your financial freedom goal and your financial independence goal? So for fix and flip, and I think Andrew was showing an example, he made significantly more than $20,000. Regardless, use this as a guideline. take a picture of it if you don't have it yet. So when you plan how you're going to pivot or how you're going to focus on investment this year, for example, if wholesale and assignment is what you want to focus on. By the way, David, as a teenager, because we talk about wealth in our money theory portion of financing class as well. If you're a teenager, as long as you have $10,000, you're the top 1% in terms of wealth. So if you have 2 wholesale deals as a teenager, or if you're 21 and under, then you're the top 1%. However, from being 39 to 40, you need another $2 million to maintain your top 1% position. Okay, so that's why time is your biggest wealth, even when it comes to age. So wholesale assignment, perhaps $4,000 a deal. Okay, so if that translates to you, what does that mean? In Toronto, a single person household spending, perhaps $3,500 is enough. If you're not traveling like Richard, if you're just focusing on living your life in the city, a family of 4, if you live frugally and just cover your basic expenses, $6,000. So you can see that just with 1 or 2 wholesale deals, you can reach your goal. Or it's basically like another person working in your family, another way of looking at it. Even if you just have 1 deal, $5,000 every season, then that's perhaps like a part-time job. Then you have additional part-time income. So if we use a guideline, focus on 3 strategies. We say 3 by 3. What if you just focus on 3 strategies? $1,000 for 2 deals with lease option. So perhaps you just want to cover your basic expenses of $4,200. That's what you'll be looking at. 6 deals. If you look at how precious your time is, what about working on 1 deal every 2 months? So even if you work quarterly, if you just cut that in half, you still have additional $2,100 per month. So that's additional trip to Europe, to the Caribbean, to Asia, whatever that may be. So use this as a guideline. Set up your own Excel sheet, or if you just want to run it on paper. And if you want to take the next step, I'm putting it out there again. We do want to see you in person in the GTA. We say Toronto, it's more likely in Mississauga or in Etobicoke. So for those of you in Ontario, and you're very welcome to fly to Toronto. We used to do that. Every class we took, they were live classes, and we flew to that city just to network, to know more people. So for example, John often comes to the networking event, right? So even though he's in Kitchener, I don't think 2-3 hour drive is too far, or even Malaz. Drive to Toronto to meet everybody. So take a picture of that. Malaz, could you again share the link to the workshop so people know where to go or where to refer their friends and family? And really, we love to be together, even though we're virtual today. This is what it's like when we're all together under one roof. Today, I realize there's actually quite a lot of comments in the chat. So if you have a question, unmute yourself. Comments, concerns, etc., etc.